Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. First of all, like to say sorry about last week. It was a complete clusterfuck, and the clusterfuck has kind of followed us to this week. But damn it, we're going to do a show if it kills me. So we were going to have Suzi Robbins from the Bar Room Atheist. She is continuing to have equipment issues. So unfortunately, she is not going to be able to make it. Then we had a couple other people lined up. Some may join us later. Joseph, if you may recall, my dear friend from Paris was going to join us, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning over there. I think he may have overslept, and that's totally fine. If he gets here, awesome. But I am very pleased that, well, first of all, let's talk to Beth, because Beth is here as usual from over in Pennsylvania. Good evening.
Good evening to you, and I'm sorry you're having such a clusterfuck day.
Oh, tell me about it. But I'm here. We're here. You know, we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. But we do have a guest, which I'm very excited about. I'd like to welcome Scott Smith, and Scott is a co-host of the Recovery from Religion podcast, and you are also involved in the Hotline Project as well, correct?
That's right. I've been a hotline agent since, September 2015, so just over a year.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, the Hotline Project is an 800 number that was set up through the Recovery from Religion Foundation, and it is available for anyone at all who is questioning their faith or looking to leave religion. And it doesn't even have to be an atheist or someone who wants to be an atheist. They may just have questions regarding their faith, or maybe even switching faiths, who knows, which is sort of kind of the topic for this evening. So you're out of Texas, and so were you religious at one point, Scott, and if so, what variety?
I was Southern Baptist most of my life, up to about 7 years ago. And I remember getting kicked out of Sunday school as a kid for asking too many questions. I remember reading the Bible when I was in college and just being amazed at what's in there that's never talked about. And about 7 years ago, my wife and I arrived at the conclusion about the same time that we're both atheists. And we skipped all the drama, or most of the drama, as far as our parents were concerned, or our jobs, employers, that type of thing. So we got off pretty lucky. But like I said, I've been with the Recovering from Religion Hotline Project for about a year. And my co-host, Emily Karp, and I started off the Recovering from Religion podcast this spring to bring attention to
Sorry, that last part, I couldn't hear you. Can you say that again?
Yeah, the spring of 2016, my co-host Emily and I started the Recovering from Religion podcast to bring attention to recovering from religion, to get volunteers and more phone traffic to the hotline, this type of thing.
Awesome. I think it's a wonderful project for sure. And in case you're wondering, somebody in the chat, he can hear you now. Somebody in the chat was saying they couldn't hear you, and I've got it fixed now, so we're good.
Cool.
But yeah, it's such a useful project and a needed project, I think, because people don't necessarily think about needing that support, even just for questioning stuff. So it's a really valuable resource, I think. And I think it's great that you do a podcast in order to try and get more awareness out there. It's really awesome.
Well, thank you. All of our callers have one thing in common. They don't have anyone else to talk to. And that's where we come in. And if they're questioning their faith, who are they going to talk to? Their preacher? We're there to listen to them, and we won't judge them. And even if they decide to go back, that's fine with us. We don't try to sway them either way. We're just there to listen to them without judgment.
And that's go ahead, Beth.
A huge thing. Like I was gonna say, like we were saying that's a huge thing. Like, 'cause I know when I decided to leave religion altogether, I mean, talking about this, she did it overnight. It took me 10 fucking years.
Yeah.
When I did it, it was pre-internet. Then back in the 80s, it was bulletin boards. Oh, I was around. I mean, just on Windows 1. Okay, that's how old I am. Okay, so have any type of support like and I jokingly say if Richard Dawkins had written God Delusion back in 86, 87, I probably would have been done and over with within a day. Not that I think his book is that great or whatnot, but solidified thoughts for me. I didn't read it until the year it came out, of course, and that was what, late 90s, no, in the 2000s. So for 10 years, I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
I did it solitaire on bulletin board. Pondered, and I'm the type that will like research something to death.
Yep.
Well, I think the services you offer are just phenomenal.
Well, and even somebody, let's say, who's they may not be thinking about even disbelief or anything like that, but let's just say like when I was a Christian and somebody told me the verse that, wives are supposed to obey their husband, I was like, pardon? Just even to have a neutral source to go, hey, can I sound this out with you? Because I don't think I really am on board with this, That's
Yeah, we get that a lot. A lot of people that came out 20 years ago usually say, I wish your hotline was around when I had to come out. And yeah, we get that a whole lot. And the verse that you just mentioned is partly why I'm an atheist, because someone in college bet me $5 that the Bible said just that. I didn't believe him.
Oh.
And I lost $5. And that's what prompted me to read the whole thing. And when you actually read a hard copy version of the Bible instead of Googling stuff, it hits you twice as hard because there it is in black and white. It's in there.
Well, when people ask me, like, I became an atheist actually through studying history, but I always say, and then I read the Bible and that told me I was definitely on the right track.
Right.
You're going to say something, Beth?
Well, I was going to say, like, for some, like, for me, like, my whole issue wasn't so much with what was in the Bible at the time. It was all doctrinal issues because I went from being a Lutheran, I went to a Wesleyan Methodist college, but converted to Pentecostalism in the charismatic church. I was one confused little puppy, and I would have people just like what Scott was saying, well, this is this, the Bible says that. And, those that know me, one of my biggest issues is homosexuality, and everybody assumes that's why I left the church. In fact, it never even really factored in because even before I got to Houghton College, I already knew the Bible said on homosexuality, in my opinion, was bunk, but that's a side issue. It was all doctrinal, like growing up, our church believed in social drinking. Well, you go to a Southern Baptist or even a Pentecostal church, drinking is verboten. Words is verboten. I mean, all this stuff, and I'm like, poker every Sunday night with my parents, or pinochle, or so it questioned that where they were getting, and that's what led me to that. So it's like Bible. Well, I had read the Bible obviously before that, being in college, but I started really delving into, and I'll use the contradictions for lack of a better term, and it was amazing. It's like what's that meme say? The best maker of atheists is to read the Bible.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, Beth and I sort of have this. I guess you could call it fight. I don't know. I became an atheist in about 2 months, give or take a couple of weeks. It took her 10 years, so we have a little rivalry about that going on.
I would say for most people, it takes closer to 10 years than 2 months. It takes a process for most people. There are a few people that it happens almost overnight, but for the most part, it takes a while.
Yeah,
A lot of people that have literally done it overnight. It's very rare. I mean, it sounds odd, but it's very rare that I've met people that it's taken longer.
Right.
And I always think that I'm the odd man out because it's like it took me that long. But I mean, I was an agnostic for a lot of that, but fully admitted to myself that I was an atheist until after it was at least 10 years. And then I didn't do it publicly until probably another 2 years after that, when I finally told people I don't believe in God. In fact, God doesn't exist, and go from there. But I don't say that too vocally because I really don't want a bullet in my head.
She lives in rural Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
But
well, he's from Texas. He'd understand.
True.
Parts of Texas, anyways.
Texas is where they keep the religious crazy and very odd Texas.
I had a friend of mine who binge watched Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson over a long weekend. And by the time he was done with that, he went from being a Christian to an atheist. Probably a world's record. You don't hear about that too often, but
yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, that beats my record pretty good. And I mean, when I did it, it was I was 17, so it was about 1989. Yeah.
Okay.
So a little, very much pre any internet or any such. I mean, I went to university with a Commodore 64, so and I thought I was styling. But yeah, you are closer to the norm. I really do, because a lot of people that I know in person have had that sort of, gradual, well, okay, I don't believe what I was raised with, but I'll try this. I don't know if I like that either. I'll try this. And it's sort of this gradual.
Yeah, and I went through that as well. I mean, I hit Buddhism for a while, and I hit my ghost hunting days, but that was
yeah, Scott, Beth and I have both been ghost hunters before, so even
really?
as an atheist, I was a ghost hunter.
Yeah, and that's just, well, for me, I was in the midst of a psychotic break, so of course, consider it just as dangerous, if not more so, more than a religion, Christianity specifically, because of some of the bullshit that they spout. But it hit me just like when you proselytize, hit you at your low point, and I was in a pretty fucked up state. So I was easily suckered into it.
See, I don't have an excuse. I'd been an atheist for like 18 or 20 years. That's kind of nice.
So let me ask you something. Do you need a license to ghost hunt, and is there a limit?
No.
And if you get a really big ghost, can you mount it on your wall and it be invisible? And do you have any ghost mounted on your wall?
We didn't need a license. The group that I was with, we were pretty hardcore. We had an 800 number. We had like magnets on our cars, advertising. We ran a booth at a psychic fair. We produced our own videos when we did investigations, and never caught anything. So I don't have any ghosts mounted anywhere, sadly, which is largely why I don't do it anymore, because it's not there's nothing to find. But that's a whole other story. We should, because we got a late start, we should get into the topic at hand anyway. But I know I said I don't want to get into, because in case anybody hasn't heard yet, because it's been like, 3 weeks now, celebrated ex-pastor atheist Theresa MacBain, who was involved in both recovery from religion and the Hotline Project. Very famously, she didn't really announce it so much as that it was discovered that she has gone back to being a minister and believes that she has found God again and all of that. There's a lot of ripple effect repercussions from that. So I think as much as I want to talk about sort of other impacts to do with this kind of scenario, I think we do have to talk about her just a little bit. A lot of shows have been talking about it, so I don't want to like do the whole ad nauseum about it, but it does bear discussing a bit. And I know, Scott, you would have been directly affected by that because, well, you work with her.
Yeah. Like I said, I came on board with the Hotline Project in September 2015, and she was the director of the Hotline Project at that time. And I met her once at a conference and worked with her, not super close, but I worked with her for about 6 months or so while she was the director of the Hotline Project. And she came across to me as a very intelligent, well-spoken, organized person, did a great job with the Hotline Project. And, you know, the way I see it, I have plenty of religious friends, and if they want to stay religious, that's their decision, and I don't try to talk them into being atheist. And I guess even if you want to go back to your religion after leaving it, that's okay too. But I think where the problem comes in with many people is not so much what she did, but the way she did it. Apparently, she didn't tell anybody in the community she was about to do this. So there's a lot of people very close to her with the Clergy Project that they were completely surprised by this. They found out about that the same way everyone else did, through her internet site, and it got passed around social media and so forth. And I think she owed a lot of people at least a conversation. This is what's going to happen. This is why it's happening. Just thought I needed to have a one-on-one with you. And she didn't do that. So I think that's what gets a lot of people upset about this. Not so much what she did, but the way she did it.
Well, and with the Clergy Project, that's a whole other ball of wax. And if anybody's not familiar, the Clergy Project is, I guess, a group, I don't know how you describe it, but they're all ex-clergy. So famously out people like Ryan Bell and Jerry DeWitt, they would most likely be members. They don't say who the members are. This is a group of pastors. Some of them are still in the pulpit, and there's a lot of, it's like they're a support group for each other, right? And so there's a lot of sensitive information that other members may be privy to. And I think that also really bothered a lot of people, because now it's like, well, are other people at risk? Because she may know about people who are still in the pulpit but don't believe. Like there's she's out now, but in Canada here, Scott, I don't know if you've heard of her. We have a minister in United Church of Canada who is still preaching, still a pastor with that church, but she publicly came out as an atheist. And interestingly, the church governing body told that congregation that they needed to fire her, and they said, no, we're not going to, which is kind of cool. But people like that who in the United States, I mean, it can be very, very dangerous for a sitting clergy person to be found out to not be believing. So I think there was a concern.
Part of the problem too, from my perspective, having friends that are clergy and having family members that are clergy, and actually being clergy myself, even though I don't use it, is that that's the only thing you know.
Yes.
You have to rely on that anonymity working through your dilemma.
Yeah.
Most preachers that are in the clergy project, from my understanding, and I do know one person that is in the clergy project, know anything else. People have been there since they were kids. You have child prodigies like Dan Barker from FFRF. He was a child prodigy, that's all he knew up until the point he came out years ago. Have ministers that don't have any other skills. They are not employable. So they rely on this anonymity strong enough to stand on their own 2 feet, get a job, to get out of the pulpit.
That's right.
Somebody, and I'm not saying that Theresa's vindictive in any way, shape, or form, but you get somebody that might be Stephen Anderson.
Yeah.
That's every which way, and that's why I think consternation is that no. And for somebody like me, highly regarded Theresa as a minister, because that's what I wanted to be for years. So I know the glass ceiling for female ministers is very difficult. So I give her kudos for that. But I also gave her kudos for as an atheist, and it's very disheartening. Erase all the other BS. Disheartening to see that she chose to go back to it.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating. It's kind of like, it makes you it's like, it's actually made me realize that my decision 20-odd years ago was the right one.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
And I mean,
people are concerned.
We've heard a lot of stuff speculate, and I don't speculate about the whys and all of that stuff. I mean, that's her business. We don't really need to know. Nobody really needs to know why, I guess. There are just a few, as Scott said, there are people that are owed at least, some kind of, hey, I'm going to go do this, kind of change where my life's going, etc. But, it's easy to get caught up in the specifics of her case, and speculating. And I've heard ridiculous things like, well, maybe she was a spy from the church, and I doubt that very much. I mean, as I said, I don't want to get held up in silly speculation like that. If she someday wants to tell us why, great. If not, well, we just don't get to know, I guess. But what I think is important, and something you kind of touched on, Beth, is that you saw Theresa as kind of a mentor. And that's, unfortunately, the Suzi couldn't be here because she did too. She said, Suzi kind of left religion at the same time and at roughly the same pace as Theresa. And so she looked to Theresa as kind of a role model. Like, here's somebody that was, way down deeper into was, and she's able to make this journey. So I can, look to her as I make this journey. And I think that's the kind of thing I wanted to talk about was, that impact to people, because there have to be, like Suzi said, it really bothered her when she found out about this. And I can understand that. Now, I count myself super lucky that I actually had to go through figuring all this out myself, alone with no internet or anything like that. Scott, I lived on a farm out in the boonies. Okay. I could tell my poor brother, who I used to tell him when he was like 7 years old, that if he didn't repent, he was going to go to hell. And I'm like, there's no God. And I was very confused at 17 as to why no one wanted to know this, because I thought I did find the answer of, the world kind of thing, but nobody wanted to know. So, I can kind of think about being in Susie's shoes, but you kind of were that way too, Beth, right?
Well, yeah, I not to put words in Susie's mouth, but I think I know where she was heading with that. Is that not visible among women within the atheist community that are in the top echelon, like Neil deGrasse and Bill Nye and stuff like that? There are some, as many as personally. That's one reason why I enjoy doing this show, is to hopefully for the younger generation, as much as I hate to say it, a role model. I mean, granted, I have a gutter mouth and I smoke like a chimney, but as far as the thought process, so I think for Susie, that's where it lies, is that she looked at somebody like Theresa as a model. And one of the biggest dilemmas I've had, especially in the past year and a half that I've been dealing with the woo, is that what do you do when you find out that somebody you admire pedestal, like what has happened with Theresa? And it really makes you take a step back. And I'll use the example of Temple Grandin. For those that don't know, Temple Grandin is she's very smart, has a PhD, but through the course of some research, I discovered that she believes that vaccines cause autism, which is so anti-science, it's not even funny, and I'm like sitting there with my jaw on the floor because we're expected to hear. And I just...
The piece to that, I think, the piece to that, I think, got lost in a glitch. There is that Temple Grandin is Asperger's on the autism spectrum. So the fact that she's made all these accomplishments is great, but then in the end, she's bought the woo.
But what do you pay attention to? Focus in on her accomplishments. Focus in on, in my example of Temple Grandin, the one negative. Or for me, just recently, I got sucked back into the whole MMS, which, if you guys remember, that's shoving bleach up your kid's ass to cure autism.
Yeah.
Suzi Wagner, who I've had the hots for since I was like 7 years old, and I still have the hots for MMS. And like, to me, I mean, if you know me, if you know the work I've done on my blog, MMS is like the biggest bullshit that I write about. And I had to take a break from it because it was just getting overwhelming, all the stuff coming out of late. Do I discount, it's like people who love Tom Cruise and find out he's into Scientology. Well, what do you do with that one bit of negative? Negative so overwhelming that it discounts everything else that the person stands for. And I think that's where Susie's problem is now. As far as within the atheist community, I'm aware of what she did do. Right? Personal level, and what minimal contact I had with her, into her as a role model per se. I just liked the fact that she was a strong woman promoting atheism, and now all of a sudden she
and it with her, and I like your idea of, do you look at the one negative aspect of someone or all the good work they're doing? And I think that's a really important point. And I have friends that I disagree with them very stringently on a couple of things here and there, but I don't get involved with I don't make a federal case out of any of that because I believe what else they're doing is more important. So I'm never going to go to them and say, I disagree with you about blah, 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 blah. You can't be my friend anymore. Get off my face. No, I'm not going to do that because I believe in the other things they're doing. But the difference with and that sort of scenario, not necessarily her, but any prominent atheist, because there's been others in the past that we'll bring up later, that does that, you can't really do that because the thing that was most valuable was through their atheism, and once they've gone back to religion, you don't have that anymore. Like, unless you can look at the work that she did for the Recovery from Religion, the Hotline Project, that's going to stay, and that's always going to be good. But you can't have that, as you said, that sort of, hey, there's a strong female atheist that's getting stuff done. I can look to that as inspiration. Yeah.
So you mean shoving bleach up your ass has other benefits? I'll be damned. I've learned something tonight. Very good.
It's up your kid's ass. That's the problem.
Oh,
yeah, not up your ass. Well, you can do it up your ass too to cure malaria and every disease known to man. But the most prominent use that gets my goat. 2020, just as a side note, did a thing on going after Humble, but he's in like Mexico now. But yeah, they use it to cure autism. And I have a nephew who is on the autistic scale, so I'm a little sensitive when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, it's something.
Well, I think too, like going back to your example where you have friends that you disagree with, is that in my case, and I know we're talking the same people here, their atheism. I mean, like for me, everybody assumes that I'm an atheist because I'm a lesbian. And actually, me being gay, me being lesbian, has absolutely nothing to do with my atheism whatsoever. Is it part of my activism but it's not part of my activism as an atheist. And in our example today with Theresa, are we able to separate the fact that she's gone back to religion from the work she did with, et cetera, and you can't separate that from her because that was part of who she was when she was, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires in the next year as far as backlash with ramifications, I think.
Well, she should at least grant some interviews. All right, answer some tough questions and lay it all out there, but she's not doing that. So that's raising even more eyebrows. As far as the clergy project, she was privy to a lot of sensitive information. A lot of those clergy, as you said, have not come out. They're still full-time clergy. They're just looking for the right moment. They're not prepared to come out right then. She knows who they are. Okay, so that's raising even more eyebrows. I'm not saying she would out them and do any harm to them, but she is privy to that information. And I think she needs to come even more forward and grant a few interviews and get these things out on the table. But because she's not doing that, I think it's raising even more eyebrows.
Well, I think what might be troubling too, and please bear in mind I'm doing this from memory, is she made a comment, I believe, on her website, her new ministry, as being able to relate to both sides and using that to. These words were not on her website as far as I remember, to her advantage in proselytizing, is how I took it.
Yeah, I heard
To me, that's troubling. If and this is a very big if, so I mean, I'd have to go look at the website again, and I can't pull anything up right now. If she said that, to me, it just, because it sounds like a game. I can use what I learned to win souls for Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like Stephen L. Anderson to me.
Well, and I think
that is troubling to me.
That's why doing maybe even just one, like pick somebody like, say, Seth Andrews. Like, he's probably going to treat her super well, you know. I mean, lots of other people would too, but, you know, if you're going to pick somebody, pick somebody you like. If it's him, great. If not, pick somebody else. Do an interview so that people have some modicum of understanding. And so it concerns like the Clergy Project and concerns like, well, are you now going to try and like trick people to you know, try and win them back, and or, you know, are you doing for the other side, or, you know, and like I said, her reasoning really is none of our business. But on the flip side, if you don't give that information, at least to some degree, all anybody's left with is speculation.
Yeah. Well, I think what's so troubling to me, and this is something I know we're going to hit on, is that scenario of proselytizing, you know, happened in the past with very well-known people. Troubling. That's the same fucking line that Kirk Cameron uses. It's the same line that Lee Strobel, the Case for Christ author, uses.
And
it's so worn and old that it's like, how else can someone think? I mean, you have Kirk Cameron, who in the beginning when he started hanging with what's his face,
Banana Man.
Yeah, Banana Man. I mean, he used to say, well, I used to be an atheist, and it's like, no, you weren't, dude. I mean, his notion of atheism is so straw man. It's really, same with Lee Strobel. I mean, if you haven't read his book Case for Christ, a lot of what he lays out in that book is used in a lot of apologetics today, saying, yes, we have proof because of the resurrection. Well, we don't even have resurrection even happen, let alone Christ even existing. So it's just so lame, and the damage it causes is just frustrating.
Yeah. Well, that's almost like saying, well, we have proof of the flying pink unicorn because I looked in this abandoned building over here and it wasn't there, so that means it rose, you know, and it's flying around, and that proves it's invisible.
Oh, damn it.
I know, it's like, it's real. But I do want to mention, though, that kind of gets us into a dangerous place where we shouldn't be doing the old, well, she wasn't a real atheist then.
And I'm not saying that.
But I've seen people do that, and I'm just like, no, don't Scotsman yourself. Yeah, we can't be saying that. You know, if she thought she was an atheist, if she believed she was an atheist, maybe her definition of it wasn't the same as mine. Maybe she was lying to herself. I don't know, but we can't kind of go down that, well, if you don't, because then it turns into, well, if you think it's, you know, no God as opposed to a lack of belief in a God, then you're not an atheist.
Yeah, then you get into the whole semantics of definitions, and my God, you and I could spend hours on that, along with photo.
Yes, Scott,
And that's the thing. I don't.
we have a very good friend who's big in epistemology, and we love going on and on about definitions of what is this and that. And yeah, the three of us, we could, yeah, we could do a lot.
Well, you know, there's been
Yeah,
plenty of preachers that's left the clergy, that's become atheists, that's written more than a few books, that's made a pretty good living. Dan Barker, Jerry DeWitt, just to name a couple. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's been done so many times that it probably can't be done again. But how many preachers do you know that were a preacher turned atheist that went back to their faith? I think it's very possible there's going to be a forthcoming book, because here's the thing. There's not too many people that have done that. To my knowledge, there's only one person that's done that, that's been Atheist of the Year, that's gone back to their church. I think the well kind of went dry for her with the atheist gig, and she knew she couldn't make any more money, and she went back to the church gig. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. And that's speculation. Can't prove that. There may never be a book, but until she gets interviewed by someone and answers some questions, we're always going to think something like that.
That's kind of would explain, you know, this like absolute avoidance of any, you know, information at all, as if she's saving it for a book. Why would you want to give an interview before you've got a book to flog, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
She has a lot of things to lose with the interview and nothing to gain. She's not going to gain anything at all with the interview. She could lose quite a lot.
Yeah.
And let's say your speculation is, and actually I think it is, I find it kind of ironic that it's coming down to one possible thing, and that's money. I mean, it's like my atheist thing, because I enjoy doing it. I make a dime off of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I find, you know, I find it funny, not just with Theresa, but with many other people within, especially within the Christian community, that type of agenda. There's some type of shtick. Like, I deal a lot with the LGBT, especially, you know, the lesbian, gay issues, and I find it comical with these quote ex-gays that speaking tours, and they're making all this money now, and it's like how much you are killing your message. There was this one lady, Grisman News features her quite a bit, and it's like a more personal story, and it's like you read the story and you're like, to do with being gay, it's the fact that you can't stand your father, divorced your mom. I mean, it's like they're not facing the reality of the situation, and it seems like majority of the atheists I know that have been atheists for years, who have come out of religion, they have a much more firm grasp on who they are and why they are, whereas some do not, and that's those are the ones that try to make money, like Kirk Cameron. An example.
Well, and look at the impact of somebody like Strobel, right? He's been going around now for years saying, you know, oh, those atheists, you know, they're not really atheists because I thought I was an atheist and I was wrong, and writing books and all this crap. And, you know, he does make some inroads with some people, you know, especially if you get somebody who's maybe questioning or thinks they're agnostic or whatnot, and then some Christian brings along a Strobel, well, here's this atheist, and he's saying he was all wrong. And next thing you know, that person, maybe they're, you know, maybe they haven't studied much in the way of religion, which isn't a bad thing. It's just who they are, and they get duped by this stuff. Like people like Beth and
Well,
I, who study this stuff whenever we can. We're not that common. We're kind of the nerds out here. So,
But
I'm a big time nerd.
what's that, Scott?
If you want to write a book simply to make money, given the population of the U.S. is roughly 70% Christian, would you rather market that book to potentially 10% of those Christians or 60% of atheists to make money? Exactly. You would definitely make more money if you got 10% Christians to buy than 60% atheists. So I think maybe she sees that. Again, speculation. Grant us an interview. We'll clear all that up.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that kind of concerned me that sort of comes from that is, a lot of recently we've had a lot of sort of what they call infighting or whatnot in the community. There's been some politics, there's been some stupid crap, and the right-wing nut jobs have been sitting there going, "Oh, look at those atheists, they can't get along." And then we have something like this, and now they're saying, "Oh, see, they're not as, she was atheist of the year and this and that, and oh, look at that, Jesus wins again." That kind of bugs me that they get to sit there and laugh, and then where there have been sort of political issues, it's the kind of thing that can polarize that too within our own groups, so that's kind of concerning.
Well, I mean, as a group, we're certainly not perfect by any means. We've got our problems, and we always will. I think there's a tendency for some people in a group to think that group is better than the other group just because they're in a particular group. And, we've got our problems, and, we've had our share of headlines and so forth and everything. And, I think we have to police ourselves, and we have to be transparent, get to the bottom of stuff, before we're atheist, humanist, or Muslims or anything else, or Christians. We're humans. And humans make mistakes. We get things mixed up. We forget shit. We have egos and jealousy and so forth. And it's going to happen. And it's definitely going to happen within the atheist community. And I think the sooner we all realize that, the better off we're going to be.
I agree. And I mean, with some of the things that have gone on in the last several months that, you see stuff on Facebook, you see stuff on blogs and YouTube or whatever. And I always think to myself, when a bunch of people are like, "Oh, see that person that we used to think was really cool and now they're an asshole and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, well, everybody that you think is cool could turn out to be an asshole someday. Like, don't just, heap it all on one person and go ape shit. Like, you could be that person someday too. Yeah. You never know. And it just seems so ridiculous to me, how, people sort of glom, "Oh, someone who's well-known made a mistake." Like, love him or hate him, when they try to rip poor Richard Dawkins a new one on Twitter, I'm just like, why? Like, okay, so the man said something that maybe didn't come off the way he wanted it to, or that you don't agree with, or whatever. Don't just sit there and nitpick the man because you think he's the most famous atheist guy out there, or whatever. You want to knock him off his pedestal, whatnot. I've seen so much vitriol against that man, and I don't understand it. I really don't.
And for the most part, if you've left the church, you left the church because you're a skeptic. If something didn't make sense to you, you asked questions, you thought about it, you researched it, and that's why you probably left your church. So why not continue to be a skeptic? If something doesn't make sense to you, question it, research it, ask questions, get to the bottom of it, because you should be a skeptic all the time.
Absolutely. And when somebody comes up, posts a thing and says, this person did XYZ, or this person said this terrible thing over there, I'm going to say, first of all, I want to see it. Second of all, what was the scenario around it, you know? And thirdly, what is their explanation, right? And that's before I'm going to make any judgment of anything, you know? Some of the things that went on, you know, recently, I'm acquainted with just about everybody involved in some of the kerfuffles, and I just kind of went and looked at some stuff and went, you know what, I'm not getting involved in any of that because everybody's wrong somewhere. So just nope.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. If I tell you that I'm Darwin's great-great-grandson just to make money off that, yeah, you should question that. Okay. If it doesn't make sense, you know, call me out on it. Do some research, you know, definitely.
Absolutely. So, and still though, from the theist side, anything negative that comes out of our community, and we get, you know, told that we have our atheist gods and all of this crap, anything that comes out.
Well, to that,
go ahead.
And I would say this: they can't speak because they're the ones that are fucking putting president, and they have nothing to talk about there. Sorry, when James Dobson and people tout that man as God's gift to Green Earth, problem, they have no right to talk.
Yeah.
Only one religious higher up that is currently speaking out against his nomination for president, and that happens to be the head of the Southern Baptists, I believe.
So what do we
Lost
do?
His name too.
What do we do when somebody this prominent goes back there? Do we do anything? You know, it's something. I think people get hung up on the personality, the person themselves, but I think we need to think about, you know, do we need to do anything, and if so, what do we do when this happens? Because it's bound to happen again, because people are people, they're fallible. And
well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is first of all, we have to avoid speculation. And I'm not picking on Scott here, but I think we have to avoid trying to figure out why she did what she did, or whoever for that, you know. And as much as I'm very, very disappointed that, you know, in my two examples with Temple, Graydon, and Lindsay, is that while I'm disappointed in the fact that, you know, that vaccines cause autism when the science proves otherwise, has done for the autistic community as a whole,
yeah,
is the negative. So you have to, if it's somebody that you respect, you're going to have to find that balance between, okay, is what they have done, whether it's gone back to religion or whatever, necessarily wipe out all the good they've done.
yeah.
And you need to focus on that good. There's some people in the atheist community that just, for whatever reason, but I find that some, am I fading out?
A little bit.
Some of their writings, and it's primarily blogs, say, so I try to focus that aspect, because personally I don't think the other aspect has anything to do with atheism.
Right, I can see that.
That's what I, you know, for me personally, what I try to.
Yeah, you conked out there a second.
Yeah,
it's all right. Yeah, but it just makes me wonder, though, like I said, do we need to think about doing anything to insulate ourselves, or like on a personal level? I can see the value of, like Susie felt like, having kind of a someone to look up to that's sort of mirroring their own journey, that kind of thing. But then, so where do we draw the line there? Because, that's valuable to an individual, but, we always run the risk of idolizing someone, right? And when we get to the point of idolizing someone, that's where we leave ourselves open to get hurt. So, do we need to, as an individual, think about these things ahead of time? Do we, as a group, need to? I don't know. It's a tough question.
Well, I mean, when you choose the atheist of the year, you can't make them promise they won't go back to the church or anything. They're chosen for what they've done up to that point.
Yes.
But here's the thing. Theresa said that she was going to take 2 months off from the Hotline Project. Needed a break, wanted to do some hiking and so forth. Everybody said, okay, enjoy yourself. During that time, she appeared on the Friendly Atheist podcast with Himit Mehta, okay? And that was April 10th, 2016, episode 102. In that interview, she was there to promote the hotline,
right,
as we've done before, okay?
Yeah.
And she gave out the hotline number, which was wrong. She said the hotline number is 1-844, I doubt it. She put in one too many fours. If you called that number, you would get an audio company in Virginia, which I'm sure took quite a few hotline calls after that episode.
I bet.
Now, to go along with that, Himit asked her how someone would go about volunteering.
Right.
She said, yeah, volunteers are important. And then she started talking about the chat line, which opened a couple of months before that.
Right.
Never talked about how to volunteer at all. When I appear on a podcast, not only do I tell people how to do that, I sell it. And she didn't even tell people how to do it. I have a hard time believing that was a mistake. I can't prove it, but she's a smart person, well-spoken, organized. I'm not buying that was a mistake.
Right.
Going on into the interview, she said, or Himit asked her, is your position as hotline director a paid position or volunteer? She said, no, we're all volunteer. My position isn't a paid position, not at this time.
Oh,
Everybody that would have been asked that question within RFR would have just said, no, it's a volunteer position. But she said, not at this time. Now, that leads me to believe that she thought it was going to be a paid position at some point in time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said it that way. Giving the wrong hotline number and not telling people how to volunteer, I'm not buying that was a mistake. Someone like that doesn't make a mistake like that. Someone like me makes a mistake like that, but not her. So that raises my eyebrows considerably. Okay.
Right.
And you can go to that podcast, the Friendly Atheist podcast, episode 102, and it's all there.
Okay.
So that's my suspicion. And again, if she grants us an interview, we'll ask her some questions. She can clear all that up. She can defend herself. But as long as she doesn't grant that interview, my eyebrows are still up here.
Mm-hmm. That's understandable. It's kind of too bad. We talked to him a while back, but it was like a week or so before that came out. That's where I saw it, was on his blog. Was
yeah.
That was where I saw it happen. I was like, we should have talked to him this week. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's what
I think Scott's narrative there goes to it all depends as far as what should we do as atheists, as a group, and it is individuals. Depends on the other individual. I mean, if you have somebody that's very forthright in their reasonings, can we question it? But then if you have somebody who, in Teresa's case, was kind of caught
Yeah.
in the manner she was, and then she's not. I mean, things may be kosher with the board of the foundation, but individual people may have questions, such as Scott is like, why did you say this? But she's not answering any of those questions. So I think a lot of what we do or how we handle it depends on how the other person does.
Well, and Lexa in the YouTube chat, she says, because someone had asked, would there have been a confidentiality agreement with the clergy project? I don't know, but it would make sense that there probably was. But Lexa says, confidentiality agreement or not, I'd say those who aren't out yet feel very nervous and have a sense of betrayal.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Hello. Before we get started, good morning, Joseph.
Morning, technically.
Welcome to the show. This is my friend Joseph Schomburg, all the way from Paris, France, who dragged himself out of bed ridiculously, like in the middle of the night, to join us. So, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Buongiorno.
I'm a bit sleepy face, but
That's okay. This is Scott. He's from the Recovery from Religion podcast, and he's also an agent on the Hotline Project.
oh, awesome. Hi.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
it going?
He'll let you know when he wakes up, Scott.
No, you dropped out, or I dropped out for a minute there. So-
Okay. He asked you how it was going.
Oh, it's going fine, I guess.
It's what, 3?
So what am I interrupting?
Well, we were talking about the whole Theresa MacBain thing and how it relates to, impacting the individual, impacting the community, impacting the foundations and groups that she is involved in, that kind of stuff. Oh, look, it's 10 to 4 a.m. in Paris. Isn't that great? I was just saying that the people in the clergy project probably feel a bit nervous and betrayed, even if there was some kind of confidentiality agreement, because there's a lot of sensitive information there.
Has there been any news there since?
No, but they're a pretty insular group.
Insolent? Is that the word you want? But I mean, when she left, she didn't inform them she was leaving. And has she spoken with them since?
Nope.
Even after they voiced their public.
My understanding is that someone or some people reached out to her, and either there was a very I'm gone or no reply at all.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
I really should have done some research on this before I came on. But
I volunteered at right before you went to bed, so I appreciate it. Okay. But
the whole issue with the confidentiality agreement, considering the position that she was put in, confidentiality agreement doesn't mean jack shit. Even in the corporate world, in fact, I just had, our restaurant just recently went through where he left one company. He couldn't even apply for another job because of the non-compete clause, which is kind of like a confidentiality. And he just finally, after a year, was able to get another job. What would they have been able to do? Now, in his case, they took him to court to prevent him from getting another job. But with a confidentiality agreement, what you do is open your fucking mouth. That's the end of it. There's nothing you can do. Yeah, you can sue for damages. Damage has already been done. I mean, how do you recover from that? And the fact that so far nothing negative from her end has come out, at least is a positive sign, and hopefully she will, a human being, not being just clergy, but just being a person, will realize that the position she had has given her this information, and to use it wisely and not use it at all. I mean, I would hate to be a minister who was on the cusp, whether, belief or disbelief, what to do about it, and be sitting there literally in the hot seat, because you don't know. I mean, it could take another 3-4 years for this, for a clergy to come out. Time period, you have somebody that could out you in a day.
Yeah,
that's a great point. She's making a lot of worried people. So
Yeah,
even for that, I mean, just get in contact with them. At least reassure them that that she's not going to say anything.
Because now I'm not super read up on her original deconversion to atheism, but my understanding was she lost a lot of family, a lot of friends. It was very difficult. And so you would think she would be sympathetic to that and understand, the fear that could be caused by that.
But this is a person who got caught in a lie. This is a person who left the church without telling anybody. This is a person who left the atheist community without telling anybody. So again, eyebrows up here.
Yep.
Yeah. Scott, especially considering what, your volunteer work with the organization is, that, I mean, I have friends that are clergy, who were clergy and have come out of clergy. I mean, I basically was leaning that way when I was in college, but had decided against it when I realized my theology did not match with my school's theology. To even distance yourself from that and explore another theology is very disconcerting. It's a very, I mean, went from pretty much from being Lutheran to Pentecostal. It caused a lot of problems in my family. I mean, my parents just did not understand it. It didn't help that, I mean, there was a huge age gap, especially between my mom and I. I mean, there was almost 50 years. So that contributed to it. But I'm the baby of the family at 52. So I have cousins that are in their 70s now. And trying to, I have some that are Catholic, Presbyterian. I think there's a few Methodists in there. And trying to explain it to them, it was pointless. So imagine, what, actual clergy are going through. I mean,
right.
We have that in your hand, and all it would take, I mean, she could pull a Kirk Cameron moment. I mean,
yeah.
You just don't know.
Right. And, when we think of someone leaving their faith, we kind of think of them being atheist or whatever. But sometimes people leave their faith and they join another faith. Like if they're Catholic and they meet a young woman and she's Baptist and he decides to join the Baptist church, and it tears the family apart. An otherwise tight-knit, loving family is torn apart because the son decides to join the Baptist church, still worshiping the same God, just in a different place. And it's almost just as bad as being an atheist or Muslim or whatever. They're worshiping the same God.
Not near as bad as being an atheist, because I mean, for these people, they depend on the religion. Religion is their survival guide, and I mean, instinctively in the brain, that's how it works for them. So somebody who leaves religion, who doesn't follow this guide anymore, as far as the family is concerned, whoever is leaving religion, that they're dead. Like, I mean, literally,
Sure.
in their mind. That and that's where all the fear comes from. Because if you stray from the way, it's like I always use the analogy having being in the forest and not knowing the forest at all, and having a survival guide at your side, somebody who knows the forest is going to show you the way through the forest. If you're there long enough with this guy, eventually you're going to learn your way around yourself. But religion doesn't tell you about the ropes of the forest, and they keep you relying on them. So
yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of the time, if you were to tell the forest guide, hey, you know what, it's been a long time, I think I got this, I'm good, and they'd be like, oh, no, because there's this part that you haven't seen yet, and it's terrible and awful, and I better stay here because you don't know what's gonna come up, and that's...
Yeah, and like a normal person would tell you, like all the dangers that you'd see it yourself. But I mean, religion tells you, but behind those trees, there's a danger that only I can see, so, and, but if you ever question me, I'm going to get angry with you and not protect you anymore, and this thing is going to come and get you.
And then
You scary me.
Yeah.
Well, it's Halloween for a little bit longer, at least longer where you are, so, Joseph's already into Dias de los Muertos.
Hey, it's midnight. I mean, the dead are literally flying around me right now.
Hey, have you seen Jesus yet? Tell him hi.
He's busy.
Busy. But yeah, like,
he has better parties to go to.
What have you got there, Scott? Sorry, I didn't see that.
This is an ancient artifact that I got from the Seoul, South Korean airport.
Excellent. Very creepy looking.
I have no clue what it means.
For those who will be listening later, it's a sort of terracotta colored candlestick with some creepy looking faces on it. Sort of. I am wearing a spider on my head, though, in case anybody...
Yes, I saw that earlier. I'm glad I can't see it.
I thought you were just having a bad hair day.
No, it's made out of, like, plastic jewels.
Oh, very cool. That's nice.
I have a one that's, fake diamonds as opposed... This one's black, so it's, like, probably supposed to be onyx or something. It's plastic, but... I have a fake diamond one, but I thought it would glow off the light a little too much. And I'd be like, disco spider head. That probably wouldn't.
Does anyone know anybody that doesn't celebrate Halloween because they think it's the devil's birthday?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the whole fucking town.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrated on the Saturday before.
Okay, we'll take that as a yes.
That's Emporium, Pennsylvania, in case anybody's wondering. Great pizza, crazy people live there.
There's a catchphrase in there somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta come up with that. Emporium, Pennsylvania, kick-ass pizza, but everybody's fucking crazy.
That should be on the sign as you enter the town.
It should be. It should be.
I think our slogan on the sign entering town is something about winning the tree award every year since 1982 or some stupid shit.
I do remember something about that.
You're from there. Okay. I got you.
Yeah, I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, so don't ask how I ended up here.
A bit of New York accent will trickle out.
I was stationed in Fort Drum, New York for 5 years. Watertown, New York. If you got it, you can freeze it off.
Yeah.
It does get a little cold in upstate. I see. I'm lucky. I'm in the middle of the planting. I'm more north than you guys, but I'm more south than like Washington State, which is kind of freaky.
Well, my wife's from Phoenix, so every time it dips down to a frigid 50 degrees, she'll put on 4 coats on her kids and mittens and goggles and stuff. I can't recognize them. They're outside for like 20 seconds. You know, they're going to be wimps.
Oh, she should never come here after September.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
in Paris,
she wouldn't make
kind of
it up
makes me
here.
laugh when they have like 2 inches of snow, and like there's like just like traffic jams for like 20 kilometers.
We've been in South Texas for 10 years, and if it snows like a ½ inch, which it has 2 times in 10 years, the whole city is shut down completely.
Yep. I've seen
My brother, when he first moved to Washington, D.C., had that problem, and he's been there almost 30 years now, and he said I think it was the first year he was there, it snowed about maybe a ½ inch, and they shut the whole city down, and he couldn't figure out why. Then he realized nobody can drive in that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, Beth, Greg, and this is a good friend of mine that like lives here, who's watching. Greg says, Emporium, Pennsylvania, come for the pizza, leave because of the crazies. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Greg. Yeah, I'm trying to leave.
Grab the pizza and
Well, now, you know, Scott, I've noticed you went to Reason Rally. We didn't really know each other. I was there too. It sucks. We could have hung out.
Oh, God. Man, that sucks.
Oh, that sucks. But, you know, I was just down again visiting friends in Savannah, Georgia, beginning of October. And we went through Emporium on the way back and got, because where Beth works and lives is like the best pizza ever. I love that shit. I actually smuggled like 3/4 of the pizza home, and we were riding a motorcycle too, so it's kind of fun. I like smuggling pizza over the border.
Well, here in Texas, you can't buy pizza without smoked brisket on it and stuff. It gets kind of old, actually.
That's not really. That's.
I will say one caveat. Dave is actually, who's one of the owner, well, is the owner, has actually won Best Pizza in America twice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's not a fluke that our pizza's good. He's actually won awards for it. He has quite a few.
Yeah,
Redeeming grace of where I live.
That would be why I would smuggle it home in the back of a motorcycle.
Well, you know, I've been a vegetarian for just over a year now, and I've been an atheist for 7 years. I can tell you I miss hot wings a lot more than I do God.
I bet.
Yeah, the tofu wings just don't cut it.
No, not at all.
How does a vegetarian not get run out of Texas?
I think I'm the only vegetarian in Texas, possibly. I'm definitely the only vegetarian atheist in Texas, so I've got that going for me.
Because there's a YouTube channel that's the vegan atheist. That's a whole other level.
Yeah.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah, it's a whole other level. It's crazy.
I cannot live without dairy. Just no.
Yeah.
Not happening. No. Hard stop. Got to have cheese and milk.
Yogurt. Yep.
Yogurt. Yep. Gotta have that. So my favorite pizza from Emporium is like this 5 cheese thing that has like ricotta and all this wonderful stuff on it. It's just cheese. So now that we've
that was one hell of a tangent.
I was gonna say, now that we've gone the show completely cheesy. So Joseph,
people appreciate the free advertising.
Yeah, this is true. Hey, I should get a free pizza next time I come down. Damn it!
I'll
I'm
mention
hungry.
it till
That's all you've
Judy
accomplished.
says. Yeah.
I know I'm gonna have to eat when we get off the line too. But Joseph,
Yeah.
so
I have some in my freezer.
since you're sort of just arriving, is there anything about the topic that you had thought of or came to mind you wanted to
I didn't have
You're-
time to sleep, let alone. But there's one thing that came to mind. Well, one thing that's bugging me about this is that I'm worried more about her financial situation than anything.
Right.
Because I mean, when you train for a job in the clergy, um, you you don't you don't know how to do anything else. That's what most worries me about this. So I'm kind of my opinion on this. I think she went back to it for that, unless there's some sort of book deal that I haven't heard about.
That's kind of what Scott was saying, actually.
But that's pure hypothesis. I mean, we can't really go there. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I was saying earlier is, you know, the potential impacts to the community. Is this something, because I'm sure it's going to happen again, is this something that we need?
Oh, it's rare. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it, and I don't really think people are too worried about it. The only people who are worried are the people in the clergy project who are afraid of being outed. And I mean, it would be just like a minimum just of civility. I don't know what to call it, but just to get in contact with the clergy project again and just, you know, let people know, okay, guys, sorry, thanks for your time, but don't worry, I'm gonna mum's the word, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these people in the clergy too, I mean, it's a scary transition, like coming out of you have a doctorate in theology, what's that gonna get you? What can you do? You're
Yeah.
gonna be a Walmart greeter, or, you know, maybe you could be an orator. What are you going to talk about if you have no training in, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's a real concern, you know, for anybody that leaves the clergy. And that we were talking earlier, that's probably why the clergy project is secretive, and they need to protect the mirror, because there's a bunch of them in there that are still preaching because they have no other source of income. And they understand that it's, you know, some people might think that was dishonest for them to do or whatnot, but when you've got a family to feed, and most preachers have multiple children, you know, what are you gonna do? You can't just sit there and go, oh, you know what, sorry, yeah, I'm out, and hope that, you know, you can get retrained in time to get another job, you know. And
I've got somebody in my family who's actually a pastor, and, you know, I may have issues with their belief, but I mean, I'm not going to. I hesitate to counter them or just like to say anything about it, just for that very reason. I mean, you know, because as soon as I start going down that road, I mean, it's going to be bad for them and their family, and basically, you know, it's his livelihood. So
yeah.
But, you know, it's not only a salary, it's a way of life, it's community. That's pretty much all they know. If they leave their faith, then they leave their friends, they leave every social event they've ever had over the last several years. And they are definitely thinking about that when they're thinking about leaving their clergy job.
Absolutely. And not only that, but, you know, a lot of them would risk losing spouses, possibly losing children.
Right.
It's huge, absolutely huge, because if you're the spouse of a pastor, you know, you've signed on for a specific kind of life. You know, you believe that you're going to be the pastor's, you know, husband or wife or whatever. You're going to probably take care of kids, and you're going to have this role. And when the spouse says, yeah, I'm not going to be a pastor anymore, they don't get to say, but I want to keep my job, because if the pastor goes, the spouse is out too.
Right.
And so
And
that's,
can you imagine being in the impossible position where you've helped indoctrinate all these people into relying on you, and then you don't believe anymore and you want to leave the church, but then you see the sea of people in front of you who you've indoctrinated to need you, to run out on them. That must be difficult too. I mean, to anybody who has any conscience or any morals, because
it would be almost like someone that got married by a pastor, and that pastor decides to leave their faith, or they discover that pastor wasn't really a pastor, and now they're living in sin.
Yes.
Well, it goes to the whole idea of shunning within some of the Christian churches, and although recently Amy Grant she's a CCM singer who twice back in the 80s when I was in college, and my first impression of her is that she was a diva, but after she divorced her first husband and married Vince Gill, the backlash she took from the Christian community, it was just tremendous. I mean, Sandy Patty went through the same thing, so it's just the same type of shunning that most Christian churches deny that they do.
Yeah.
You do it. I mean, like Teresa said, when she first left the church, she lost some of her family over this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like you guys are saying. I mean, it's like a divorce. I mean,
yeah. Well,
it's
and
just that type of pressure is, I mean, it would be astronomical. I mean,
that's one of the things that stuck out to me when apparently she put a statement on her website, and that's like the most anyone's gotten out of her. And it said something about, with the unconditional love and support of family. And I'm like, with that fucking dissed you the first time around. Like, where do you get?
Well, was she talking about going back or leaving?
After she went back.
Yeah.
Like finding God. It was through the unconditional love of family.
Oh, but of course the family is going to be, I mean, going back it must be huge affirming their whatever. I keep on going back to this. It's like it's a survival guide. I mean, I'm sorry, it's how it works on the brain. It's like it's instinctive. If you don't know how to survive for yourself, you need to depend on somebody else. And going back to the abandoning the flock part, I would go a little bit further than worrying about your marriage not being valid. I mean, morally, it must be akin to leaving a bunch of school children, like on a school trip, just leaving them in the middle of New York on their own, just like taking them to New York, just in the middle of the trip, just saying, "Oh, fuck this, I'm off, guys, have fun."
Well, I think in some cases, using your analogy of the school children in New York, they would have better luck than some clergy would have coming out of the church because of the shunning that they do endure. I mean, there is, thankfully now there is, at the time, 10, 15 years ago, there was nobody to help. Individuals such as Jerry and Rob Bell was more recent, but Dan Barker, John Loftus, all of them, I mean, they came out, there was nobody to help them.
Yeah.
I mean, even for Deb and I, even though we're not clergy.
Oh yeah, there was nobody. Absolutely nobody. I never knowingly met another atheist until I'd probably been an atheist for a good 10 or 15 years. By the time I knowing.
You want to know when the first time I met an atheist was?
Oh, a long time.
No.
No?
The day you came to my door.
Holy shit.
That's the first time I met another atheist in person. Now, I've met atheists online, but only in the last maybe 5 years.
Wow.
That's
And
Are you
how
real?
isolated,
Let me
and that's
talk
how.
here.
I mean, that's how isolating
How do
coming
you
out of religion
breathe?
can be.
just quickly,
I mean,
I was going to say, Greg says that Dan Barker lost almost everything when he left the clergy: wife, kids, friends, money, his parents. Um, and he still collects royalties on religious music he composed back when they.
yeah, he does.
Funny, but
Yeah.
holy
He
shit!
jokes about that.
And back to what you were saying, though. So, my husband, who drives said motorcycle that we were on, he is actually a practicing Buddhist. And I would characterize him as an atheist. He doesn't give a shit one way or another. So you've only ever really met me? That's it? Wow. Holy
Now
shit.
imagine that for someone coming out of the clergy.
Oh, fuck.
By Scott's organization that he's involved with, and I'm having trouble remembering the name and keeping it straight in my head. That's why I keep saying it that way. Why it's so important, and why what occurred with Theresa could be so damaging, because in the hands of somebody like a Lee Strobel, they're going to twist it all to hell. Charisma magazine is put out, I think, 2 articles, and they're already twisting it all to hell.
You know, if you want motivation, Google Dan Barker and Oprah Winfrey, 1984, because Oprah Winfrey, she interviewed Dan Barker and his future wife, Annie Laurie Gaylor.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
This was in Chicago before Oprah made national, celebrity status and so forth. It was a talk show. And they took a pounding from the crowd in the audience, right? And this was, like I said, 1984. And they were guests on our podcast a couple of months ago. And really, that was one of the best conversations I've ever had. They shed a lot of light on a lot of topics. And I mean, I can't imagine being that open and upfront about being an atheist in 1984. That was amazing. They had balls this big.
That's it. Yeah.
Do yourself
I
a
saw
favor.
something on
If you've got
Phil Donahue
53
too.
minutes, Google that, watch it from start to finish. And
I would compare it to the interview she did with Diane Nyad a couple years ago, where she was totally aghast when Diane Nyad said she was an atheist. I mean, so take her reaction to that and compare it to the interview would be interesting, because she's just as flaky now as she was back then.
Absolutely.
And I got to tell you, Oprah, what they were doing, they actually had a hotline back then. I think it was local. It wasn't national like ours is. But they said, or Annie Laurie, Dan Barker's wife, said, we're doing this for people who have decided to leave the religion. We're there for them. And we're not trying to convert anybody into atheists or anything. And Oprah interrupted them in mid-word and said, but isn't that what you're doing by coming here and talking about it? And Annie Laurie said, but that's why we were invited to be here. Of course it was. They're not invited to be there to talk about baseball or just to sit there and not talk at all. That's not what a talk show is all about. She was offended, Oprah, because they were talking about something that they were booked on the show to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and that's a typical attitude. Like, I know when I was in college, we used to have what were called Clue Weeks, which was Christian Life Emphasis Week. And this is where I've had the exposure to a lot of the mainstream speakers that are now popular today. And one of our Clue Weeks was dealing with homosexuality in the Bible. Basically, they invited, it was the head of Now at the time, and for the life of me. And two other people, I think one was a minister who happened to be Jane Spar, who were gay, and basically it turned a week of let's slaughter the gays and the lesbians. And about the third day, and this is where I started running into trouble with the school, I got kicked out twice. My question is, why are you, basically slamming these people? You're not even discussing the issues. All you're doing is telling them that they're bad and going to hell. That's not discussing homosexuality. I mean, this was in the 80s, so you can imagine. And it was like, that's the attitude. Like what Oprah did was basically, she was aghast that they were talking about being an atheist.
But
I mean, well,
and it's like you
different than a Christian talking about being a Christian.
Right.
It's like you invited them. What the hell did you think they were gonna say?
Talk about, yeah.
We're atheists, but tell us all about Jesus, because I was a minister, so I don't know of any idea about that.
No, let an atheist tell you about Jesus. I can probably do it better than you can.
So much more. Oh man.
I just put up a link to your comment
Murray.
about she was presented. I think that's the first thing I saw of atheism was on that show, and they just presented her like she was like the devil incarnate. I mean, it was just
Madeline Murray O'Hara took some. Oops, hold on.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, the Donahue show always annoyed me.
She took some shit. I remember when the ruling came down, started taking effect in like the 70s. I mean, granted, I was only like 7 or 8 years old, but I remember where we went from saying a prayer. I don't know if we used the Lord's Prayer or not. Of silence in school and the shit that went down with that. And I think the ruling was like in 68. She took some shit growing up in the 70s and 80s. And it's just like, I mean, some people can't stand her, but because she was so vitriolic. I mean, she makes Richard Dawkins look mild, but she got stuff done. I mean, that's a good one, Joseph.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always dislike that show because, I mean, for a lot of the non-critically thinking people today, I mean, their definition of good is same or same clan. I mean, whatever their upbringing is, that's the definition of good. Anything outside of it, it's just off the radar. They don't understand it. It's bad. They don't want to know. It's just like instantly demonized.
It's tribalism. It's tribalism and conformity. Something that you guys know I can't abhor.
I call it value judgment, but I mean, people who know how to decide good or bad for themselves, if you don't have that ability, all you have is just somebody else's example to imitate. That's all they've got. And that's the definition of good. So I don't know if you want to try and look at things through that lens. And I can remember being like that as a believer before. Mm-hmm. Like I was just like watching this Donahue show. I was like, just like, my heart was going like, it was totally, at the same time, totally fascinating. And my heart was going 1,000 a minute. I mean, because it was just like as scary as shit, these people. Like imagining a life outside the fold.
Well, it's like when I first heard about the whole kerfuffle with Dungeons and Dragons on TV. It was like a news report.
Oh, speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, guess who croaked finally this week?
Yes, we did a whole episode about it on Saturday night. Jack Chick.
Yes, another nemesis.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for the interlude.
That's okay. If anybody follows the Bible Reloaded at all, they do. They read Chick tracts quite regularly, and or 3 days before Jack Chick died, they had been doing reading a Halloween tract, and at one point in the episode, one of them said something about how, we've lost so many good people in 2016, and Robin Williams has been dead for 2 years already. Why is this guy still alive? And like 2 days later, he croaked. So they were kind of like,
maybe they say Robertson, the old bloviating windbag.
Well, they did a tribute tract later, and they were at the end of it, they were like, people have been asking us like if we can kill someone else, so we're taking names and we're gonna ask why they're still alive and see what happens.
Yeah, that guy always fascinated me. When I read his stuff, and I just look at it and I think to myself, doesn't this guy get outside? Like, I mean, what have they got him locked up in a basement, the church basement somewhere? And they're like just bringing him food from time to time or something?
He's like or some shit. And yeah, I don't think he'd left the house since the early 70s, because they were commenting that on all the later tracks, the clothes and everything looked the same from like the 70s on. So it's like he probably just didn't leave his house after like 1972 or something. So
wow, that must be really something.
In which case, I could have possibly scared him into his house because I was born that year, and early in the year. So maybe I kept him in his house. I don't know. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those not aware, Jack Chick is one of the main proponents of the whole satanic panic of the 80s.
Yes. And he used to say that Dungeons and Dragons were demonic. And
he's one of the guys, telling little children about all the scary things you don't see behind the trees.
Yep. So, absolutely. So, you know what? Goodbye.
I remember the rock group Kiss.
Yes.
Everybody thought Kiss stood for Knights in Satan's Service.
Service. Yep.
That was the favorite of Mike Warnke's.
And just four Jews so ugly that they had to put up makeup because they didn't feel confident about being on stage.
Hey, Paul Stanley was hot, okay? He still kind of is.
He's probably the only one in the group. The rest of them were like...
I had a huge thing for Gene until I found out how much of an asshole he is, so yeah.
I just love the logo. That was awesome, the logo. I don't remember anything about their music. I just like...
I was a huge fan. I've seen them 3 times, original lineup, original makeup. But the other one was AC/DC, stood for Antichrist, Death Child, or Devil's Child.
Of course.
Oh, when I was a kid, I had a T-shirt, Highway to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The album.
Highway to Hell.
My mother saw this. I forget what it was. It was an AC/DC T-shirt, and written very, very small in the T-shirt. It's written "Highway to Hell," and my mother had bought it for me, and she just saw this, and like, nope, can't wear it anymore.
Yep.
Well, folks, it's getting to be that time. I know we started a bit late, but it's been a long day and kind of frustrating, and I think it's about time to wrap it up. So does anybody have anything they want to add before we go? And Scott, please plug all your stuff too.
Sure. I appreciate that. If you're doubting your belief, or you're in the process of leaving your faith and need someone to talk to, you can always call the Hotline Project at 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. That is 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. The hotline is open Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Central to 10 p.m. Central, and on weekends, 8 p.m. Central to 10 p.m. Central. We also have a chat line, which is open Saturday and Sunday, 8 p.m. Central to 10 p.m. Central. And if you would like to volunteer, that would be great. Just go to recoveringfromreligion.org, click on the volunteer button, and we'll set you up and you can be a hotline agent potentially. we would definitely appreciate that. Our podcast is on iTunes, iHeartRadio. I'll even put it on 8-track if you want it that way. Just ask and we'll somehow make it happen. And I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on this show. It's been great. It's been fun. And I think we've discussed a lot of good stuff. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for jumping in and joining us at the last minute. That
Yes.
was really awesome. Now, Joseph, I know you have a blog. You can tell me about it if you want, but otherwise, thanks for dragging yourself up at 2 o'clock.
It's just my brain fart diary. So like, yeah, put it in the links if you want. But
Okay. Make me do all the work. That's fine. I'm the host.
Well, not that important, really.
Yeah. Okay.
My road out of my own stupidity. Follow it.
And Beth, where do we find you?
Well, the easiest way is on Twitter, which is Dune9998. That connects to my blogs, which is plural. Although I haven't been writing at Havoc and Chaos, I do have another blog that I started called iScience. And basically I'm focusing more on sciencey stuff, thinking I'd get away from the religious bullshit. Yeah, no. So, and that to Facebook, which is Beth A. Hambridge, and I welcome all comers.
Awesome. And of course, every week we do like to mention the Taylor Scholarship over at the Whitefields Educational Foundation. Whitefields Educational Foundation also assists people who are looking to leave religion, and they provide face-to-face counseling in Utah. And they have a scholarship which provides funding for people who need the services but are unable to pay the fees. They try and keep it as cheap as possible, but we all know that times are tough and there are people who may not be able to afford that. So if you wish, please go to whitefieldseducational.org/My Book of Mormon podcast, because of course, friend of the show, David Michael, started this up, it was a couple, 2.5 years ago now. So please go over there and donate if you are so inclined. And of course, I am available as well as just, hey, I should make you plug. Holy crap. That's what I should have done. Damn it. Oh, well. You can find Joseph and myself Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. Yesterday, yes. No, it's Monday now. Yeah, I guess yesterday morning. Yeah, okay. Stop confusing me with the time zone. But we have that ungodly hour because we are ungodly, and we're trying to compete with Coast to Coast Radio, which is the Woo flagship of radio. So there's Joseph and I and our host, Shujin Tribble, and several other crazy people that join us for a panel of 6 to 8 people, depending on who's awake and who's not doing other things, etc. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Like we totally roasted Jack Chick yesterday, and that was really fun. So that's Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. You can find it holycrapthevlogcast.net. I was actually really.
Did you just say holy clap?
Cap. She's tired. Leave her alone.
Yeah. Fermez la bouche, mon ami. Anyway. Yeah. No, we're not going to break into French because I have really bad Quebecois, and he's been in France for 25 years, so he'll totally, yeah, that won't work. But anyway.
No words you would be saying.
Yeah. Well, Joseph would, sort of, kind of, but.
Yeah.
So holycrapthevlogcast.com. You can find us on YouTube, Holy Crap TV. Facebook, we have a Holy Crap the Vlogcast Facebook page, Twitter. Check us out and see what kind of crazy thing we're up to this weekend. Next week, it looks like we will be just talking with, and I apologize because I just set this up before the show, and I have to find my page. Yeah, that's terrible. I should be better at that.
While she's looking for that, don't forget to set your clocks back this Sunday,
Yes.
1 hour. Unless you're Muslim, then set it forward 2 decades.
Yes, please. At least.
2 decades, 1,400 years.
1,400 years.
Or something like that, whatever.
Catholic, an extra 300 to 500 would be good too. Next week, we're going to be talking to Matt Kovacs, who is working on, and this is exciting, a documentary about the historicity of Jesus. And that's going to be coming out soon. So we're going to sit down and talk to Matt about his documentary and all things to do with mythicism, and whether that creepy guy actually ever existed. So that will be next week, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, assuming Murphy doesn't try and kick my ass again. For the record, apparently don't ever do a restart, 4 hours before your show. That's just not long enough. So.
Windows is Murphy embodied.
I know. It's pretty sad, but anyway. So I will leave us all, as we do every week, with our friend David Foda and his Creed for All Humankind, and we'll see everybody next week. And I'm not getting any volume. That's lovely. I don't know why it's doing that. Well, shit. Okay, you know what, folks? For those of you on Spreaker, I'm going to put this in post, and I still don't know why this isn't making any sound. So I'm just going to say good night, and we'll see everybody next week.